What's up, fight fans? It is Monday, June 19th, 2017, and this is the Monday Morning Analyst. Hope you're doing well. My name is Luke Thomas. I'm the host of this podcast, as well as a lot of other things. Three parts to the podcast. As always, we take a look at the technical action that happened over the weekend, something else a little bit in more detail with multimedia tools in the second segment, and then take a look at what's coming up ahead in the week, at the next weekend. So, without further ado, there wasn't a whole lot that happened this weekend. Yes, there was Kovalev Ward 2, but that was mired in low blows that Larry Weeks didn't see, and then later on Twitter saying he apologized, but then was being accused unjustly, which I don't understand. Bob Bennett further embarrassing himself, not only in that, but also in the Rigondeaux fight. So I don't even want to get into that. I know you guys probably have a lot of questions about Mayweather-McGregor. I promise we're going to have a lot of coverage on that. A lot of coverage, not just after the fact, of course, but before that. A lot of analysis, because I'm seeing a lot of people being like, what's so hard about going from MMA to boxing? You know, Conor's got a lot of striking skills. Shouldn't that count for something? And, of course, I think that's partly true. It should count for something, but I also think we should have, this is a teachable moment to have a better understanding of what he's up against as well, right? Like, what is the challenge in going from one to the other? What could be some of the pitfalls? What could be some of the changes? What are some of the things that Floyd does well? In particular, what does he not do well? Those kinds of things. So we'll be doing a lot of that as well coming up. But not this week. This week it's just UFC Singapore. This took place, it was also known as UFC Fight Night Holm versus Correia, or UFC Fight Night 111. This took place at Singapore Indoor Stadium in, I guess, Kelang, Singapore. Please forgive my pronunciation. Did an attendance of about 8,414 for a gate of 839,000 US dollars. Okay, in the main event, Holly Holm defeating Bethe Correia at 109 of the third round. Now, we're going to take a look at this in the second segment, but obviously a must-win scenario. You know, 4 losses in a row would be terrible for her, so she got out of that. It also looked to me, and you'll see this when we go over some of the tape, it looks to me that, you know, that question mark kick, obviously it never landed by accident, and by that I mean if you throw it and you intend to land and it lands, you should get credit for it. But I guess what I am saying is, more than that, she threw it a bunch of times in the fight and I didn't even recognize it. And it was only after going back and watching a couple times and then slowing it down, I was like, this was something they had clearly thought of from the beginning. They had spotlighted this as something to try, and it worked perfectly. It took her a little bit of time to get going, but it worked perfectly. I'm not really sure what you can say about Correia's fight. A couple times in the pocket, she sort of stood her ground and landed. That's never been one of Holm's strengths. Holm really works on that outside space, connects and move, you know, or works at kickboxing range. So didn't necessarily learn a whole lot about Correia, but a nice return to victory for Holly Holm. Again, second segment, we'll take a look at that in great detail. Marcin Tybura defeating Andrei Arlovski 29-28, 28-27, 29-28. Boy, this is a tough one for Arlovski, is it not? I believe, let me just double check here. I believe this is 5 in a row for him that he has lost. Yeah, his last win was September of 2015 where he defeated Frank Mir. And that was a nice long win streak for him. It was the Mike Kyle, Andres Kraniotakis, Brendan Schaub, Antonio Silva, Travis Brown, Frank Mir. And then it's been just the opposite. Lost to Stipe Miocic, lost to Alistair Overeem, submitted by Josh Barnett, lost to Francis Ngannou, and then Marcin Tybura. This is the first one he hasn't been finished in of those 5 losses, but nevertheless, pretty bad. I mean, look, here's the thing, like, Arlovski didn't look all that bad, you know. He was, a couple times when he was able to get out of mount in that first round, and he could rally with punches, and the kind that he throws, you know, those sort of big arcing hooks, they were landing, that was good. He was throwing to the body a little bit, actually, in more than just that round. He didn't look overly shop-worn, like he didn't look that bad, but there just wasn't any zip or pop or real fight-affecting moment there. He didn't really quite have, he just wasn't quite able to just get something really going and really stick it to the guy. Marcin Tybura is not a bad fighter by stretch of the imagination, but you would feel like Prime Arlovski, either with a punch or an authoritative takedown on the pass, could have really done a whole lot. And it just felt like there was just languidness, if that's even a word, to this contest. Tybura, the best thing he ever did, of course, was in that first and third round, achieving mount. They were both kind of stalled out against that fence. Neither really had a great moment there. You saw Arlovski do that outside trip, and then Tybura tried to do that Fedor bit where he turns his hips over in the middle of the turn to the ground, and he almost came out on top, but he couldn't get it because he's still obviously refining his skills. So In the striking department, it wasn't like Arlovski was overmatched, because he wasn't. In fact, if we're just dealing with strikes, I thought he was the better one. Tybura mostly on the defensive and covering up, but for sure Arlovski won that. But, you know, the guard of Arlovski just wasn't enough. What else can I say? If you get past him out twice, it wasn't enough. And there was a couple times where, you know, Tybura had the back, and if someone has your back, you can slide out underneath and then turn into them. But if you do it slow enough, people can feel you go down, and as you turn, they come on top and take mount. And you saw that in that third round as well. So it was like, I don't know. I don't know what's next for Arlovski, because he didn't get beat up too bad in this one, and he actually had good composure in mount, in blocking and holding, so there was that too. But 5 losses in a row is nothing to play with, you know. Colby Covington defeating Dong-Hyun Kim 30-25, 30-26, 30-27. I'm not sure about the 30-25, but 26 and 27 makes sense. This was like a guy, pretty incredible, right? Just using sort of a tight waist and folk style rides to get behind Covington, to get behind Kim, force him up against the fence, and really take advantage of that guy's. There was that one throw he had early. I think it was a Harai Goshi off a whizzer, but it wasn't enough. Covington is. This is the thing. If Dong-Hyun Kim can get on top and pass to someone who commits to the bottom space, he's really good. If Dong-Hyun Kim can take your back, he's really good. He's got great throws. But if someone gets behind you and doesn't commit to being on the bottom and playing guard and just immediately gets back up, he's got problems. And then when because all I need to do is hook a head or hook an arm in judo, and you can get a lot going. But if they're real careful and they're shifting your weighted direction and they're pressing you into the fence and they're constantly underhooking, it can be hard to get that going. And the other part was Dong-Hyun Kim just has some poor fight IQ in the stand-up opportunities. You know, walking into Colby Covington like that. Covington had no problem just cracking him in the face as he walked in, or with his hands down here, you know, not really doing anything to really shield himself or set anything up. Covington was just able to time it, and it wasn't like Covington landed a ton of punches, but he didn't need to. Whenever he landed, it was great. So a weird fight from Kim, a bad matchup. Covington's, I know a lot of people don't like him, but he's a force to be reckoned with. He's a good fighter. He's got a great folk style for MMA kind of game. And, you know, if you can't break that tight waist, if you can't break that grip and cause immediate separation, you know, you're going to have problems. I mean, I realize this is not a featherweight fight. This is a welterweight fight. But just think about how good Jose Aldo is at breaking someone's grip, turning into them, and facing them. He's extremely good at it, right? It's something from that referee's position, right? We talked about with Holly Holm and Miesha Tate. Sink your hips out, drop your weight, and turn. Standing. And Kim just never really was able to even get anything going. You know, we had one time I had a Kimura grip on the outside, but that's mostly just a show of force. It doesn't do anything. Rafael dos Anjos defeating Tarec Saffiedine 230-27, 129-28. I thought dos Anjos looked competitively well-sized at this fight. He was able to press Saffiedine into the fence, was able to underhook with him in series, was able to push him around, overcame him. I mean, vicious body shots. So, like, whenever Saffiedine was, let's say, orthodox, he was getting chewed up to the body. And then when he would switch to southpaw, dos Anjos would tear up that lead leg. I really enjoyed both of those. Dos Anjos does not have finishing jiu-jitsu. Like, you look at his finishing jiu-jitsu, it usually has come off of punishment or somebody who's like a little bit overmatched on the ground. He's not going to really snatch up a submission on you. But his technical mastery underneath, or positional understanding, is obviously super high. 2 examples. One, just using a quick deep half to come right back on top, underhook, and stand. Really enjoyed that. And then the second one was, and this is a small detail, and someone pointed out to me on Twitter, like, well, that's a small detail. Right. The accumulation of small details is what matters. You had Saffiedine reaching over and trying to crossface with the crook of the arm, right? Trying to get that elbow space right across someone's face, make them look away. If you can control the neck and the hips, they can't go anywhere, right? It's not magic to control someone underneath. You have to have super tight pressure on their jaw, and you need to have their hips controlled in some manner or another. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, but that's really what the essence is. And you see Saffiedine looking for the crossface, and then before he could even get in there, boom. You can look at the picture I put up on Twitter. There he goes. He catches the bicep and forces the arm away every time. Saffiedine's really never able to establish control on top. and the one time he was on top in that first round, because Dos Anjos has real solid positional fundamentals in jiu-jitsu. And if you are even a white belt, you'll know about you just can't let someone wrap your head. You got to get your hand up in there. But so many fighters don't do it. So many people forget it. I don't understand why, but they do. And Dos Anjos didn't, and it was one of the reasons why he was able to get up as quickly as he did and not take any punishment underneath. John Tuck defeating Takanori Gomi, 112 of the first round. Gomi appears to be shop-worn at this point. John Tuck just completely overwhelmed him, took his back and choked him. There was not much, great defense. Actually, he had Gomi. I think he had Gomi reach, and then when he reached for it, that's when he put the leg over and caught one of the arms, so that it made finishing the choke easier. So that was a nice little finisher from John Tuck. But Gomi is, how many losses has he had in a row? I haven't even seen. I wonder. Let's see. Takanori Gomi. Yeah, that's 4 in a row for him. He hasn't won since beating Isaac Valley Flag in 2014. So that's a bit of a problem for him. Walt Harris blowing by Cyril Asker at 144 of the first round with punches and elbows. Heavy, heavy ground and pound, man. Cyril Asker gets dropped, I think, with a right hand, and then Walt Harris gets on there. Big ticket was laying into him. Heavy, heavy elbows. Great stuff from him. Alex Castros defeating Rolando Dai. Dr. Stoppage at the end of the second round. This is the one I want to spend a little time talking about. Oka Sasaki defeating Justin Scoggins. How did this happen? At 3:19 of the second round. I do not understand the career of Justin Scoggins. 25 years old, 2 fights he's lost in a row. He's got a win over Josh Sampo. His resume should look better than it does, and it just doesn't. And I don't get it. I went back and I watched this fight. I'm like, how is this guy losing? If someone asked me, is Justin Scoggins' jiu-jitsu good? The answer is yes. Yes, it is. It's very good. It's very, very good. I don't think his problem is skills. He can wrestle. He can strike. He's got a very unique striking style. And he can do jiu-jitsu. He can absolutely defend. He can pass. He can attack. He can do all that stuff. And he's got good mixing in between, too. He's got a good strike to, a shot. Or he can mix up strikes and then throw something you're not seeing or whatever. Skills are not his issue. They're not his issue. I really think it's his competitive mindset. And that's not something we talk a whole lot about on this. Now, when I say competitive mindset, that can mean a number of different things. I don't mean his willingness to participate. What I mean to say is there are times in the fight where I don't even think he's aware of it, where he mentally checks out for a second. When I say checks out, I don't mean quits. I mean just kind of takes it easy for a second. And not even because he's tired. It's almost like he's sparring in there. Sometimes guys spar, they might take a second to think about things, or they're trying to noodle, what am I supposed to be working on here? And they'll just take a second. And the partner, depending on the sparring scenario, may or may not put it on them. But a lot of times they won't, right? They're trying to work through something. Sparring is not about winning necessarily. It can be depending on the kind of sparring, but sometimes sparring can just be, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing to make progress technically? So, for example, comes out with that amazing suplex, right? But then later on up against the fence, there's a moment where he's just kind of standing there, and Sasaki hits a trip. It wasn't like the trip came out of nowhere, and I guess it did because Scoggins was just sort of standing there, but he wasn't really actively in pursuit of something. He was just kind of hanging out, right? I don't understand it at all. Look, you're fighting tough guys. Tough guys are going to get things on you. It's not, I don't care that he got tripped exactly. Sasaki's a good fighter. It was that, how did that happen? Why were your feet just standing there? They weren't in motion. He wasn't really doing everything he could have been in that scenario. And it sounds like, well, what are you expecting from him? Perfection? No. This is the other moment where his sort of like lapse in attention came and got him. He was winning those grappling exchanges. But then Sasaki got the better of him and takes the back, and then he's face down on the mat, hands here. Why are your hands on the mat? You knew that rear naked choke was coming, and once it came, you didn't fight the high hand. It was just weird, man. It's just it to me is this like competitive attentiveness is what I would call it. It's not exactly hustle, because when the wheels are turning, boy, he's getting after it, huh? And he's showing you the skills to win. And I think there's a submission defense issue that, I think he's got a lot of good. I think there might be an argument to be made that he's got an imbalance in jiu-jitsu, which is to say he's got much better offensive jiu-jitsu than he does defensive jiu-jitsu. So maybe you can say that. But even then, There's just these times where guys do things on him, and they must feel like they're getting, they're picking his pocket because he's not doing a whole lot to fight it off. He's not doing a whole lot in its short moments. And I'm not talking that he's hanging out for 30 seconds. You don't need to hang out for 30 seconds. 3 seconds is all you got to do. If you're just not paying attention for a second and you're just kind of hanging out there in a moment, somebody who's getting after it is just going to win by default because they're just trying things. So to me, it's like, what is the answer? A sports psychologist? I don't know, but I don't look at this kid and say to myself, well, this is a skills issue. It's not. I just don't buy it. Again, if you want to work on some things to improve, his defensive jiu-jitsu, okay, all right, fine. But do I think he knows how to defend a rear naked choke? I do. Do I think he knows how to defend a guillotine? I do. I just think sometimes he maybe takes a little bit of shortcuts or just doesn't quite have the same attention to detail and attention over time that he needs to get things done. But I fundamentally believe he's a very, very talented kid. It's a competitive issue. It's not a skills issue with him. Li Jianglong defeating Frank Camacho, 29-27, 28-27, 29-27. Camacho coming in of late notice. Folks may not know this. Camacho, for a time, trained with Team Lord Irvin here just outside D.C. Now, you might be like, well, the Team Lord Irvin that had the scandal. Yes, my timeline could be wrong. My recollection is that I don't think he had any, I know he didn't have anything to do with that the stuff that went down. And after that scandal hit, he actually left and went back to Guam. I think he was... I don't think he wanted to be a part of anything that had to do with that scenario at the time. Frank is a great guy. I can't claim to know him well. We interacted more than a few times just on the DC MMA circuit. You run into these people all the time. Frank is a hell of a guy. Could not be nicer. Looked to me like he was probably training, but certainly not in fight shape given the late notice. Frank has always been known as a hard hitter, and I was glad to see him get this opportunity. He put it on Zhang Lang early, but look, the guy just couldn't take it and just didn't have the cardio to keep up. And by the time he slowed down, Zhang Lang took over. But you get the idea. I think he's a very talented guy. I don't know how far he's going to go in the UFC, given how late he was brought in. But I think I last spoke to Frank maybe 7-8 years ago, something like that, or 6 years ago. It's been a while, but he's a great guy and always has been. And maybe this fight would have been different had he had some energy, but Zhang Lang has a ridiculous chin because Frank stuck him in that first round, and he came back. Great leg kicks, great body work from Zhang Lang, so I was happy to see that. Russell Doan defeating Kwan Ho Kwok, 4:09 of the first seconds. Kwan Ho Kwok was killing him with the leg kicks, but once he got him up against that fence, you guys have seen it. Guys get backed up, and they just get upright. And Doan unloaded on him and caught him and then just dropped him from there. Not much more to it than that. Doan has fast hands. Fast, powerful hands. He was beating the dog crap out of Pedro Munoz, too, before he got caught with that guillotine. How about this guy? Wow. Catch weight of 131 pounds. Naoki Inoue defeating Carlos John de Tomas, 30-26 of the all the way across the board. This kid, Inoue, boy, keep your eye on him. Whoa. Super talented. Super, super, super talented. If I wanted to be a nitpicker, I could go through and point out some things in real time that he did in terms of the armbar finishes, not pinching his knees, not bringing his heels to his rear end. Really, really hard to trap De Tomas under there. But De Tomas, number one, was squirmy as hell. Very, very, these guys that have real, De Tomas had good submission defense. But he had borderline his willingness to fight the position was what really made that possible, right? So you combine good submission defense with an iron will to escape or just not give in, and it can be very, very difficult to submit a guy. And again, a few technical things he can obviously work on. Fantastic transitions to the back, great back control generally, sitting up into various versions of S-mount, just doing a lot of really advanced jiu-jitsu. Again, some of the finishing stuff, if you want to nitpick, you could. Rolling his guard to reface someone when they were escaping, so he goes for something. I think he was trying for a triangle. He was about to lose it, switches to the omoplata, then switches back to the armbar. This is really incredible stuff on the feet. I thought he was pretty accurate. He had good movement, good defense. That kid, I mean, how old is he? What, 21 or something? 20? Look out. Look out. He is mega talented, and he is only going to get better. You put some weight on that guy, you give him some punching power and a little bit of refinement here or there, he is going to be a nightmare. And then Lucy Pudilova defeating Ji Young Kim, whose hair looked like a mop, and it put me on mega tilt every time she got hit or she would move. She was constantly throwing these huge looping shots and was getting off the center line, but like doing it in a very telegraphed way, and her hair kept shaking all the way over, which I realize is an incredibly petty thing to complain about, but there you go. She won. Pudilova did 29-28 across the board. Score's a little iffy there, but whatever. Fight of the night, Jiang Lang versus Camacho, so those guys got an extra 50 grand, and then Holly Holm and Olka Sasaki. Okay, let's do this. Let's go to the second segment now, and we're not going to go too in detail about this. It was UFC Singapore, for crying out loud. But Holly Holm had a nice win, and what I noticed was, as I mentioned before, that question mark kick that closed the show, she'd been trying it a few times throughout the course of that fight. Let's see what the conditions were that ultimately set up that finish, and we'll do that now. All right, Holly Holm taking on Bethe Correia. Defeats her with a question mark kick. Now, what is a question mark kick? Right? Also known as a Brazilian kick. In fact, I always understood it as a Brazilian kick. I didn't learn the question mark kick name until much, much later. I always did it off of, I don't forget my pronunciation, Glaube Feitosa. Glaube Feitosa was the guy who used to do a lot of this in kickboxing and had a really great one. It's where, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but what essentially is what you're doing is you're going to show them a kick that makes them think it's coming up to the middle, and their defense drops in some kind of way. Maybe they're down parrying it. Maybe they just bring their elbow down. But you're essentially getting them to bring this away. At the last second, this heel, the non-kicking heel, obviously, will spin on the ball of this foot. You'll spin, and then this leg looks like it's coming up here. At the last second, bang, comes over the top. Right? That is what a Brazilian kick or a question mark kick is. And the reason why it's called a question mark is because if you think about it, the leg comes up and then around, like a question mark. Yeah? I know a question mark, if you're facing it, is this way as my mouse moves this way, but you get the idea. Mirror image in this particular context of a question mark. It would be a question mark if it was done on that side. Anyway, all right. Southpaw, orthodox. So what you're going to see Holly Holm do here, we don't have a ton of these slides. This is real simple. She's going to try it a number of different times. She's going to use a back leg kick here to see how that works. She doesn't do a lot of those. It's sort of like that oblique kick, but from the rear leg, not the front leg, right? John Jones kind of does like a front leg stomping side kick. She does a sort of a rear leg one. It's a little bit different. But the point being is this. What you're going to see Holm does is she's constantly feinting and faking and going different directions, and she's going in, she's going out, she's going side, she's going side. What you're basically going to see her do is she'll do something to get a reaction, back up. Correia will follow her, and then as she's moving in, Holm will then come back into distance and crush her. And the reason, or at least throw it, and then crushes her at the end. And the reason why I think she does that, I'm not sure, I haven't spoken to her coaches, but my sense about that is, remember she sort of pushed Rousey into direction, and she's done that with other head kick knockouts she's had as well. She just has a really keen sense about where someone's supposed to be, and I think that mechanism of having someone walk in after she's created space and then covering that space again just lets her know exactly where somebody's going to be, right? But we'll see that over time. Now, at first, she doesn't really throw it. So here we are, 2:35 of the first round. Let's see what happens here, all right? She's going to feint. She's going to fake. And Correia kind of had this hand up, but it was down all the time. This was the side I thought she was going to take advantage of. Bring this up and then whip it over the top to catch her. And it didn't exactly happen that way because she used the rear kick, but the rear leg kick, the left one in this case. But here she's feinting, faking, right? Let's see, how much has she moved here? Not a whole lot, right? She's kind of coming in. She steps in a little bit, steps back out. They step to the side. Correia follows, right? Here they are again. There's this terrible computer of mine renders. You see they're moving all around, right? No big deal. Let's see what happens here. She feints. Here it comes. See what kind of reaction she can get. Boom, and throws this one. And what she got was, not only does this hand come out for the parry, she tries to throw the right one to catch her. And right there. This is the one I'm looking for. Right? Wait till this sort of renders here. That's what she's looking for. And you see that. What kind of reaction did she give here at 2:30 of the first round? She fired a shot, stood in place, and just kind of winged a shot over the top. Now, it doesn't land. At least not much anyway. But, gauging your reaction. If I give you movement, if I show you feints and fakes a certain direction, and I throw this rear leg kick, What are you going to do as I sit in space? Wait, what is that you're looking for? All right. So here we are, and then she backs away, doesn't really land. Let's jump forward a little bit here. 134 of still this very first round. Now, Correia was doing something weird here. She was like looking down, and then she would lower her level, then look up, and she would come back up. You know, it's one thing to look someone off with your eyes. It's another one to do it in sort of a really telegraphed, bizarre way. But Holm was doing her thing, going in, going out, going side, feinting, faking, sticking the jab out, you know, moving her head forward, just trying to get reactions from Correia, right? So she does this thing where she's backing out. Yep. Let's see again. She's coming forward. You can see her movement almost looks like she's bouncing, right? And Correia is doing the same kind of thing, coming up. There she is. There's this weird thing she was doing, right? Well, here we go. She looks down. And remember, we saw this in the Rousey fight. Nose, sort of elbow, hand, knee, foot, all kind of in one line there. She leans real heavy on that. All right, trying to draw reactions out of you. She's going to step. Correia comes up high here. The hand's up top. Look at that. Kind of interesting, right? This is the one where all the space is created on this side. But she's going to come up, and you can see what's Correia going to do again? She's cocking the right hand. What's going to happen here? Boom. Catches her with the question mark kick, but it's a little bit on the shoulder / throat. But here comes that right hand, right? So now you can see kicks like this, if you can disguise them, depending on how you set them up, once Correia feels like it's coming to the body, because that's what she feels like it's probably coming as, she's going to toss that right hand. So we go a little bit later, and then so you can see this right before the moment of impact. Boom. And then, of course, she misses because she's just too far away. All right? Here we are. I believe this is the end of the first round facing off. She doesn't land here. She just throws. She steps back. Correia comes forward a little bit. Then she backs up. This is a fake. She throws. Right? And it got Correia to back up, so she's too far away, so she just pulls it. Then they move over. And this will render here on this terrible, terrible computer. Right? She's going to step forward. And look how she has the proper angle here to give space either for the left hand or the left leg. And she's actually going to pick it up and look at this, and she's going to flip it over the top. Hold on. Like that. But she's too far away, and Correia pulls the hand. So there's a distance issue here, which I think she was using this to not exactly figure out. I think she was going to throw it and see if it would land. But clearly there's a distance issue. If she's too far away, Correia is just going to be defensive. If Correia is tight enough in on the space, she's going to react. Not this kind of scenario. So it didn't work. All right. We'll go to the second round halfway through. Let's see what happens here. All right, here she is again, setting up. Look, you can see here, has the outside angle. All right, throws, just a high kick. And I think it was a question mark kick as well, but it wasn't properly disguised. This time, too far away, gets a bit of a down parry here. She was constantly doing a sort of an inside circle parry here. You know, so you imagine like Danielson washing the car or whatever it was, where instead of you going outside, you come inside. It's sort of an inside parry. That's what you see here. She'll take it and swipe it that way. All right. 38 seconds later. Not a whole lot of activity here. Or 38 seconds at the end of the round. Here she comes again. Let's see what happens. Boom. She's going to land something here, which you'll see when this terrible computer renders. Now, this one, I believe, was a question mark kick up top, but it was too close. It was too close. So she was able to get this parry in on there, and she timed the parry right. So it kind of hit her in the midsection. But I believe it was another question mark kick. It looks like a side kick. It's not. You can go back and look. 38 seconds of the second round. It's a question mark kick that just wasn't. So you can see she's having some distance issues. How close do I need to be? How far away do I need to be? I'm not quite there. Even that one that landed hard in the first round just wasn't quite there. All right, and you can see this is right before it lands. See how she gets to it right there. Right. All right. So now we go to the third round. This is where things go badly for her. Look at her. She has the outside angle, and she's stepping out here. You see that? That almost is a bit of a telegraph if Correia is looking at it. Right, but she didn't quite pick up on it. So then what happens is she's going to throw here. So this time she just lands a body kick right to the middle. Now it sort of connects at the foot / toes, but it wasn't a question mark kick. She didn't change the angle at the last second. She kind of set it up already and just threw it to see what kind of reaction she would get. And again, you got the hand up here and this one. So she's not quite throwing as much. This is why the choice of it was kind of interesting about why she decided to throw it. It's the left hand to me where there's all the space is created. I mean, literally her left side is wide open now. It would be because she's throwing a left kick. Holm is, so there would be no need to cover that side. But you get the idea. Like, she's relatively decent with this one, but we know that if we can do it the right time, we can bait her, we can get her to look. And at a minimum, we're telling her, oh, we're going to the body, we're going to the body, we're going to the body. And maybe we're not actually going to go to the body because we're going to go to the head the last time. So Holm is at least investing in the process of confusion by doing this, yeah? Now there's one moment here, next, where Correia sort of coming forward, Holm stepping back, and she gets a little too close. I don't think this really had to do a whole lot with the setup. It might have, but you'll see what happens here. Check this out. So Correia gets a little too close, and she doesn't really effectively land this like rear leg oblique kick. And the punch doesn't land that much either. Now, Correia doesn't make a whole lot of use of it. Just sort of pointing out, she throws this in a way that I think probably helps set up the finish, but this one also seemed a little bit, in terms of its timing, to be desperation. All right, so here comes the beginning of the end, and we mentioned it before. What's Holm going to do? She's shown her a bunch of different looks. She's faking, she's feinting, she's coming in, she's going out, she's going side, she's going side. Yes, she's stepping into the outside of this foot to create the angle, and yes, we've seen all the various kicks she's thrown. Let's see her put it all together here and see why this lands. Let's look at the anatomy of this and see if we can't figure it out. Remember what I said she likes to do? She likes to react, get a reaction, back up, create space, have this person cover space, and then as they're covering it, she comes back in. I think she's just trying to figure out, how does this person cover space when I give it to them? And then as she, remember, because she was a little too close sometimes, a little too far away sometimes, this one she gets it just right. She's going to step to the outside like this, yeah? Raise this leg up. You can see now Correia still coming in. Boom, and just catches her over the top. Now, we're going to get a better look at this so you can appreciate it. But, I mean, look at that. That is as clean as a whistle, right? Boom, and drops her, and then lands a vicious left hand on her, I believe, or left or right, whatever it was. One punch just finally closed the show. Now, let's watch this. This, I think, is the best angle. So here's what happens. Watch this. You see her coming in tight. She's faking and feinting, right? Let's see what happens. She steps back. Now Correia begins to move in. That's when she sets up. As she draws this person into space, she brings it up, right? And what's going to happen? Now, you see her bring the hand. Look at that. The hand's up like this. But she looks like she's trying to parry a kick to the middle because she looks like she's going to do like almost a push kick. I'll show you more of that in just a second. Check this out, right? And then boom, comes boom over the top. Just over the top of the gloves. I mean, just over the top of the gloves. Really kind of brilliant. She was able to do that. Also kind of forward-facing too, right? Less on the side of the head, more right up the middle. And then, I mean, look at that. Crushes her. And then sends her down. This is the best angle on the whole thing. Remember, gets her to react, backs up. As she backs up, this person covers space. As they're covering space, she recovers space to get just the right distance and crushes it. And I haven't talked about this for this whole section. Look at how well this is disguised by Holly Holm. Interestingly, Holm doesn't spin a lot on this heel. She moves a little bit, not much, but look at how well this is disguised. This is what the kick looks like to her, right? Hips are almost square. Look at this. The kick looks like she's going to do a push kick, like a teep. Look at that. Is that not brilliant? And here, to Bethe's defense, her hand is up. Her hand is totally up, but it's not enough. She drops it at just the last second, just as she whips it. She thinks this is about to be a teep kick, so she brings her hand down, or maybe she thought it might go to the body or something. She didn't think it was going to catch her up top, so as soon as she drops it, crack. Not only did Holly Holm disguise this perfectly, I mean, this look, she hasn't rotated her hips at all. A little bit here, but it looks like she's leaning back to throw a push kick. And just at the right moment, bang. Perfect timing, perfect placement, perfect camouflage, perfect distance. All those other things she was doing, setting her up, trying to find the right distance, exactly what because remember before when she was first throwing this, Correia was throwing the right hand. Well, she wasn't getting the commitment on the right hand, but it didn't matter. If I can get you to bring your hand just a little bit down at the end of the combination, right? So at the end of these moments, she was getting a little bit slack. Just at the end there, she was kind of letting her defense go, and that's exactly when Holm was able to take advantage of her. Because look at this. Here, right here, perfect. When she thinks this is not a push kick anymore, when she thinks she can just parry this away, only then does she drop it, and then it's too late. Bang. I mean, that is a very, very pretty head kick KO. Not merely because she used a question mark kick, and that in of itself is great, and how she set it up and used various different opportunities to calibrate the distance she needed, but just the timing on that is absolutely sublime. Wow. Really, really good. Because Bethe Correia, I know everyone's like, she was waving her on, then she gets KO'd, LOL. All right, but to me, the bigger story here is this. That a nanosecond before, her defense was just fine. It was that she sold this almost like a push kick, and that when the hand came down just at the end because she thought she was safe, bang. Just brilliant. Really, really brilliant stuff. Great job by Holly Holm. And last but not least, we take a look at what's coming up in the week ahead. All right, let's see. Next week, 2 events to pay attention to, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. On Saturday night, Bellator 180/Bellator NYC. I have no idea why they do 2 names, but whatever. All right, Chael Sonnen taking on Vanderlei Silva, Fedor Emelianenko fighting Matt Mitrione, Michael Chandler defending his lightweight title against Brent Primus, Douglas Lima defending his welterweight title against Lorenz Larkin, and then Aaron Pico making his debut against Zach Freeman. On the Bellator 180 Spike TV card, Phil Davis defending his light heavyweight title against Ryan Bader, James Gallagher taking on Shinzo Machida, Neiman Gracie fighting Dave Marfoni, Heather Hardy, the boxer, will face Alice Yager, and then on the Bellator.com prelim card, Ryan Couture facing Haim, Jerome Mickle versus Anthony Giacchino, I don't know, John Salgado fighting Hugh McKenna, Matt Rizzo taking on Sergio Da Silva, and then Bradley Desir taking on Nate Greb. And then on Sunday, you have UFC Fight Night Chiesa versus Lee. Michael Chiesa will face off against Kevin Lee in the main event. This will be on Sunday, of course, Sunday night in Oklahoma City. I believe, right? Yes. Tim Boetsch taking on Johnny Hendricks at middleweight. Felice Herrig taking on Justine Kish. Joaquim Christensen taking on Dominic Reyes. At light heavyweight, Tim Means taking on Alex Garcia. That's a welterweight contest. And then BJ Penn taking on Dennis Seaver. On the Fox Sports 2 prelim card, only 3 fights apparently. Clay Guida taking on Eric Koch. Carla Esparza versus Marina Moroz. And then Devin Powell versus Daryl Horcher. He is back. Lastly, on the Fight Pass portion of the card, Jared Gordon versus Michelle Quinones. Josh Stansbury versus Jeremy Kimball. And Tony Martin taking on Johnny Case. All right, if you got any questions, email me, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. Shout-outs to the great Max Holloway for the wonderful compliment on my breakdown of his fight. I really appreciate that. If you guys haven't seen it, Max Holloway approved it, so it can't be all that bad, huh? And thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you see me in New York, say hi, don't be weird, and until next time, enjoy the fights.